We've all heard that money cannot and does not buy class, and at Trump's Bedminster Golf Club, that much is proving to be true. Following a health inspection last month, the club was hit with an embarrassing 18 food violations, receiving the lowest grade in the entire county out of 115 retail food establishments. Part of me wonders why Trump didn't just pay someone off to pass the club or just not give it such a low score. Maybe he was too busy actually running the country or doing whatever it is that he does all day, but that's never stopped him from engaging in less presidential tasks before, especially when his own reputation and image are on the line. An online report from a May 6th health inspection visit reveals that the club, one of 3 clubs the Republican president owns in the state, received a 32 out of 100 from the Somerset County Department of Health. Half of the club's violations were warned to be critical, with the possibility of resulting in an unacceptable health risk. So what went wrong at Bedminster? For one, just the fact that the club was issued so many violations was in itself a violation. 18 violations is apparently way too many. Also, the head of the club's food and beverage service, quote, failed to demonstrate knowledge of food safety. And I want to talk about this for a minute. That might not be surprising, considering Trump loves to put people in charge of departments that they have no experience working in. Linda McMahon is the head of our Department of Education.
There is a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. And that's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges.
We have a Fox News host running around in our Pentagon.
How many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia, trying to work on submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare for these types of negotiations.
A 22-year-old college grad is now leading a terrorism prevention center at our Department of Homeland Security. The kid wasn't even alive when 9/11 happened. We have RFK Jr., who was an environmental lawyer heading up the Department of Health. And there's this idea that I've never found much value in, that intelligence is wholly transferable. It's the idea that if you, for example, made it through medical school, you have a base level of intelligence that suggests that you can be put into any role and be just as effective as you would be in a hospital or a clinic. If you're a good doctor, it's not necessarily because you studied and practiced for years of your life to become an expert in that specific field. It's because you are so smart that you would have been effective in any field, which has simply been demonstrated by your ability to have made it through medical school. And maybe that much is true. Maybe if you're an intelligent person, if you had chosen to go to law school or architecture school instead of medical school, you would have become a successful lawyer or architect. But you can't go from medical school straight into being a lawyer, no matter how high your baseline intelligence is. And you can't do that because even assuming you would eventually be able to grasp the law once you've studied it, you haven't actually studied it. You don't have the information in your brain yet. You have not been exposed to it. Smart people still need to study. Smart people still need to read a book before they're able to comment on that book, let alone interpret it and analyze it in any meaningful, high-level contextual way. They simply won't be able to understand the nuance of any field better than someone who has put in the time and effort to truly study any subject. It's like when people listen to a podcast episode on a topic and then they suddenly think themselves experts in that topic. They might be able to repeat some interesting facts to make themselves sound interesting and informed, but there's no real foundation of understanding beneath their fun facts. You'll never get a strong foundation or understanding on any topic from podcast episodes. You'll only ever be a parrot, and Trump surrounds himself with parrots that he himself has glorified and elevated. That's why none of them can answer basic questions about the operations of their own departments when they're questioned by members of Congress or the press. That's why they repeatedly demonstrate their own incompetence, because they are incompetent. So anyway, back to the club. There was a household microwave in the main kitchen as opposed to the required commercial grade microwave. Seems like something that someone should have noticed. And hand washing. Look, we all remember the pandemic. Hand washing is apparently not only very controversial, but it is highly political. Some people don't like to wash their hands, which was a very fun thing that we all learned a few years ago.
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me!
No, I inoculate myself. It's just not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them. Therefore, they're not real.
But there were 4 separate hand washing points that the club got flagged for. There were sinks with no soap or paper towels near them. Gross. One was missing the required hand washing sign, which is such a basic and simple thing that anyone who runs multiple businesses that serve food should know to have. And another sink was just being used to store a sanitizer bucket. And these were such dumb violations that most businesses would simply avoid being cited for them. The smallest bit of care and know-how would have prevented such a low score from the club, but we also know that Trump and those like him don't put a whole lot of stock or have much respect for regulatory organizations. Regulations simply impede business and growth according to them. And sure, some of these regulations I can do without. I recently helped a friend open a coffee shop here in Houston, and there were some things that we had to ensure were compliant with regulations that I personally found to be a little bit irritating. But at the end of the day, they were in place for a reason, so we had to comply, and we did. But any establishment that serves food or drink is held to a high commercial standard, mostly for the sake of general cleanliness, sanitation, and health, which is totally understandable and honestly better safe than sorry. But it's true what they say, whenever you eat outside of your own home, you don't know what you're eating. You don't know what kind of kitchen that food came from. You don't know who prepared your food or with what tools or what ingredients. No one seems to remember Typhoid Mary, OG Patient Zero, who refused to wash her hands when preparing food for her employers, even though she was made aware that she was actively spreading typhoid to those around her. She just kept doing it. And as she bounced around from job to job, typhoid outbreaks would follow close behind to the point that authorities were able to track her down by following the cases of typhoid across the country. I don't know, I think about Typhoid Mary a lot. But above all, this is a story of what happens when you have incompetent people in roles that they do not deserve. Perhaps a megalomaniac leader would prefer to have lackeys instead of competent people in higher up positions, because lackeys just do as they're told and they don't talk back because they don't know enough about their role to have any meaningful thoughts or contributions surrounding the role. Now, I'm not trying to claim that Trump hired all of the people working at Bedminster himself, but Trump regularly claims to be such a successful businessman. It's hard to make that claim when your business is run so poorly. But for Trump supporters, the fact that he is a billionaire, doesn't matter how he got those billions, is proof enough for them that he is so intelligent that he was able to crack the code and hack the system. He's both a billionaire because he's successful, and he's successful because he's a billionaire. And since he's so good at business, which of course history shows us he is not, he's obviously such a good president. And I'm going to say that I don't think he is a good president, but agree to disagree. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.